Hello to everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Sharonda Paddock Warner, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Oracle Advisor Webcast session entitled An In-Depth Overview of Email Marketing Server. Our speaker today is Rajesh Arjunan. He's a Senior Support Engineer with Oracle. We expect today's webcast to last approximately 60 minutes, including a brief Q&A session. Today's recorded PowerPoint presentation, along with audio, can be found on My Oracle Support under My Oracle Support Training Central, and then select Recorded Training. New webcasts will be posted approximately 48 hours after the presentation. Questions may be submitted to me through the presentation via the chat. Just look for the icons located on the toolbar at the top of your WebEx session. The questions will be collected and read aloud during the Q&A at the end of this presentation. What you see on your screen at this time is the Safe Harbor Statement, which serves as a reminder that this advisor webcast is intended for information purposes only. Any features or functionalities described for Oracle's products remain at the sole discretion of Oracle. Now, let's get started with our presentation. Rajesh, if you're ready, I'll turn the webcast over to you, and you can begin.
Thanks, Sharonda. Hi all. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rajesh Arjunan from Global Customer Support Team, and I will be presenting today's webcast on Email Marketing Server. The intent of this webcast is not to make you an expert in Email Marketing Server, but to provide you an in-depth overview of Email Marketing Server. As a part of today's webcast, I'll be covering the Email Marketing Server components. What are the components of Email Marketing Server? Their functionalities, and how to send emails using Email Marketing Server, and how we capture bounces and responses. We will also see about architecture, process flows, and installation of Email Marketing Server. We will also have a look at what log files to look at and the troubleshooting steps. Email Marketing Server. The Email Marketing Server comprises of a set of 3 Java components. Each of it has its own installer and a separate services running. The first is ESD, Email Sending Daemon. As its name says, it's used to send emails. ESD sends outbound SMTP messages to MTA to send emails. MTA is Mail Transfer Agent. Also, ESD manages synchronous bounces from MTA. The synchronous bounces are immediate bounces from MTA, like invalid email address or MTA not available, etc. In any case of immediate bounces, it will update back Siebel. Also, ESD updates Siebel Marketing Application back with campaign status and campaign list status. Every campaign will have list of contacts and prospects under them, which are targeted for a particular campaign. And those list of contacts and prospects are called as campaign list. Okay. Moving on to CTD. CTD is Click-Through Daemon. It manages the incoming HTTP traffic to capture any marketing responses like click-through, forward to friend, subscribe, unsubscribe, etc. And it will also redirect to appropriate landing pages in case you are using web marketing. And CTD creates responses in Siebel application for every action taken by the recipient of the email. CTD is stateless and it can run in parallel, and it can be used for load balancing and high availability. The third and last component is BSD. It's Bounce Handler Daemon. BSD manages all asynchronous bounces which comes back from internet. So as soon as a bounce comes back from internet, it will classify the bounce type and bounce reason, and it will update the campaign list status. Again, BSD is stateless and it can run in parallel for load balancing and high availability. We will look into detail about these components in upcoming slides. This particular diagram shows more detailed physical architecture of how the overall marketing application is constructed. On the left-hand side, you see all the components of traditional Siebel stack, the SWSE-based user interface, the workflow process manager, and other server components. And also you see the transactional database and email marketing server in the bottom. On the right-hand side, you see set of components based on analytics platform. We embed the user interface for segmentation and list export into the main Siebel UI using portal framework, exactly like Siebel Analytics and Dashboard and Answers. In the middle, you see what is SOAP interface to allow Siebel server to interact with analytic web server. This allows the workflow process to request segment counts, list files from analytics server using SOAP request. SOAP is nothing but simple object access protocol which has structured information to make web services call in any network. So it helps in interaction between any two networks. We will not be looking into more about analytics part in this webinar. We will be more focusing on email marketing server throughout this webcast. Getting into more details of email marketing server integration, whenever an email marketing campaign is launched, a campaign launch workflow is launched and it will create two files into Siebel file system. Those are email content file and email recipient file. Email content file will have the content of the email and recipient file will have list of all the recipients. And it sends a SOAP message to ESD. As soon as ESD receives the SOAP message, it reads a file from Siebel file system and then it sends an SMTP message to MTA to send out emails. If there are any synchronous bounces from MTA, it will send back to Siebel as SOAP request. Once the emails are sent out, any asynchronous bounces from internet will be handled and processed by BSD. And BSD sends a SOAP message to Siebel to update the bounce reason and the bounce type under campaign list. Any clicks or response done by the recipient on the emails, like clicking on URL, forward to friend, etc., are captured by CTD, and CTD creates response in Siebel server by sending a SOAP message. We have already seen what is synchronous and asynchronous bounces. Like synchronous bounces are immediate bounces from MTA that are handled by ESD, and asynchronous bounces are from internet and those are handled by BSD. Again, asynchronous bounces are further classified as hard and soft bounces. Hard bounces are permanent ones, permanent failures like bad address, address moved, etc. Soft bounces are like temporary, like mailbox full, network issues, or firewall issues. Basically, these categorization will further help in either deleting or updating those contacts or prospects. This is where you can track all the bounces. Under a campaign, when you drill down under a campaign, you can get into Execute tab. Under Execute tab, you will have all contacts/prospects across organization screen. Under the View tab, you can see list of all the contacts or prospects which have been targeted under this particular campaign. So, again, under that you can see few columns called status, email bounce, reason code, and email bounce type. That status is whether this email has been sent or whether it has been bounced. Email bounce reason code says what is the reason for the bounce if it has been bounced, like bad address or mailbox problem, a network problem, etc. Email bounce type states whether it is hard or soft bounce. These three columns might not be visible when you get into this application by default. You might have to click on the menu button and choose column display, and you have to move these three columns to visible columns to make it visible and to track it. There are multiple types of responses which Siebel and Contd provides you to capture and track. Clicking on any URL embedded in the email can be tracked. Like you can have any URLs within your organization, the URLs which can be sent across through emails. Those can be tracked whenever it is clicked. Similarly, we have functionalities like one-click subscribe, subscribe to list, unsubscribe to list, forward to friend, etc. There are also functionality like requesting callback, requesting for more info, clicking on any web survey or a web offer. Like these things like web offer and web survey, it requires enabling of web marketing, and these can be achieved using designing landing pages. There is a separate webcast on how to design landing pages, and you can refer that webcast for more details. And apart from these responses, which has been provided out of the box, you can also design your own custom responses as well. This is the screen which shows you where you track the responses. Under campaigns, if you drill down, there is a tab called track results. Under that, there is a view tab called responses. There you see all the responses for this particular campaign. So the response type will be captured, like what kind of response it is, whether it is a forward to friend or a click through or unsubscribe request, or what kind of response is it. And it will also tell you who has done it, like the contact or a prospect, their first name and last name, and which offer and treatment for this has been targeted, and also the response date, what time this response has been created. Like any other email client, you can also track read receipts using Siebel and Contd. Like whenever recipient opens an email, you will wish to capture when it has been done. This can be achieved using Contd and Siebel. So to enable this feature, there are a few simple configuration steps which is mentioned in bookshelf. You may have to do it. And as a part of this implementation, a small 1x1 pixel image will be sent along with the email offer email. When customer opens that email, the images will be downloaded and it will help us in tracking the open time. So there is no conscious action taken by the recipient. This image will be automatically downloaded and it will help us in tracking the open time. If the recipient opens the email multiple times, it will update the message open time with the last time when the recipient opened the email. So if the recipient opens it 3 or 4 times, the last time will be recorded. Again, there is a small catch in this functionality. There are few settings at the customer end. The recipient end could block this functionality. There are recipient email client preferences option that can prevent the display or download of any embedded images in the incoming emails. So this will not allow to download this image, and which will in turn affect this functionality. The ports used to make the request for the images may be blocked by the recipient firewall. And again, the recipient email application can also be set by default to read all the emails as text instead of HTML. So again, in this case, the image will not be downloaded, and we have to be aware of these cases. The same place where we see all the contacts of prospects under an organization, where we track the bounces, there is another field called message open time. This particular field will tell you the message open time, that is the read receipt. And again, this field might not be visible by default. You might have to click menu button and go to columns display and add this column into the list. If you'd like to see how the email marketing server interacts with Siebel, it varies from version to version. So starting with Siebel 7.5, email marketing server does not use any ESD. It uses only CTD and BSD. Instead, it uses a communication outbound manager, which is an inbuilt Siebel server component to send out emails. So communication outbound manager performs the task of ESD, but it will not be able to handle any synchronous bounces here. So ESD is introduced from 7.7. So from 7.7 till 8.0, there are all three components are there, ESD, CTD and BSD, and they connect back to Siebel gateway server using systematic connection. Systematic connection is a traditional way of connecting to Siebel gateway server. Starting from 8.1 onwards, all three components interact with Siebel using web services, that is by making SOAP call. The SOAP call will get into the Siebel web server directly, and the EA object manager will handle those requests. Let us see in detail how this architecture works. In Siebel 7.5, when the campaign launch request is submitted from UI, a request goes to Siebel web server, and then Siebel web server passes it onto Siebel enterprise server to trigger marketing campaign launch workflow. When the marketing campaign launch workflow is triggered, it calls marketing wave launch workflow as a sub-process, and the marketing wave launch workflow sends a request to communication outbound manager, and communication outbound manager sends a request to MTA to send out emails. Once the email is sent, and if any bounces comes back from the internet, it will be tracked by BSD. And BSD will update the Siebel campaign list status by making systematic connection to the Siebel gateway server. And like any HTTP request, like click-through, read receipt from the recipient will be captured by CTD. And CTD will also connect back to Siebel using systematic connection to create responses. Moving on to 7.7 till 8.0, when a campaign launch request is submitted in UI, then the request goes to Siebel web server, and then Siebel web server passes it on to Siebel enterprise server to trigger the marketing campaign launch workflow. Marketing campaign launch workflow in turn calls marketing wave launch workflow. This wave launch workflow creates two files, recipient file and email content file into the file system, and it sends a SOAP message to ESD to send out emails. As soon as ESD receives the SOAP message, it reads the files from the Siebel file system, and it will send out emails to MTA. And in case of any synchronous bounces, it will connect back using systematic connection. And if there is any asynchronous bounces from internet, it will be tracked by BSD, and it will update the Siebel campaign list status by making systematic connection to Siebel gateway server. As we have seen in past, any HTTP request like click-throughs will be captured using CTD, and CTD will also connect to gateway server using systematic connection to create responses in Siebel. From Siebel 8.1 onwards, the entire flow is same as what we seen in 8.0. The way UI sends a request to web server and then to enterprise server, it is same. It is also same how Siebel ESD sends a request to ESD and ESD gets back, but synchronous bounces is same. But the only difference is all three email marketing server components interacts with Siebel back using SOAP call, as you have seen is highlighted. The SOAP call, which goes to Siebel web server directly, and those requests are handled by EA object managers. You can see the highlighted SOAP calls made, like call from BSD updates asynchronous bounces, call from CTD to create responses, and ESD also gets back on synchronous bounces with SOAP message. There could be multiple implementations that are possible for email marketing server infrastructure. This is one of the sample one. Ideally, CTD and BSD should be in a demilitarized zone. This we'll refer to as DMZ. This is a premium networking which lies between your company's network and exposes it to internet. And ideally, CTD and BSD are supposed to be in demilitarized zone. You can have a complete separate infrastructure or leverage a corporate email infrastructure to send out emails. There is a new domain or a subdomain of the corporate email can be used. Very importantly, high availability, security and blacklisting has to be taken care in advance for a smooth process. These things should be done during your design phase itself, as email marketing process touches many areas in your organization. You can also engage Oracle expert services while designing your architecture, especially if you have complex architecture or high volumes involved. Moving to the process flows, how each and every component works. In all the process flows, we will be focusing more with Siebel version 8.1 and later. Let's look at the process flow, how ESD works. Whenever a marketing wave launch workflow is triggered from email campaigns, ESD receives a SOAP request from Siebel Marketing Object Manager to process a wave. A wave is nothing but a set of, it's part of a campaign. It contains a list of contacts or prospects under it. As soon as ESD receives a SOAP message, ESD acts as a Siebel file system to get the recipient file and email content file. As described earlier, the recipient file will hold all the list of recipients and their details, like their email address, first name, last name, or any other details which is required. The content file is a MIME file, which is not in a generally not in a readable format, which will have the content of the email which ESD and MT understands. Then ESD creates control files for the mailing process. Those files will be created under ESD/date directory /mailing folder /00x, where the 00x corresponds to particular wave batch. Usually there are several wave batches created for a particular wave. Ideally, for every 10,000 records, a batch will be created. Say if you have a wave of 50,000 records, it will create 50 batches to process a single wave. Once the control files are created, ESD creates the emails, and the emails are sent using a from address as SEMA-CR-SCAMCON row ID, the row ID of the contact under the campaign, at BSD domain. We will be defining this BSD domain while we set up the few parameters under Siebel. You can track all these SMTP communications under ESD.log. If the MTA refuses or bounces any emails, immediately ESD will create a bounce request under ESD queue directory bounce queue data queue.xxx file. The queue handler will process these synchronous bounces based on the parameters you have mentioned, and it updates the campaign list contact status as bounced. Say for example, for any email is bounced for a particular recipient called A, and that particular recipient A send status will be marked as bounced. If a temporary error occurs for a particular given email address, it will follow through a hardcore retry option, like about 6 attempts, and will try to send out the email. If it fails, then basically it will put it under bounce queue. When a wave batch is finished completely, all the emails are sent out, and ESD will create a callback request to update status of all the contacts in the wave batch to status as sent wherever the status is blank. In case of asynchronous bounce record, like we said, the record A which has been bounced asynchronously, those will already have the status set to bounce, and those records will not be modified or updated during this callback process. Only wherever the status is blank, those records will be updated with status as sent. When all the batches in the particular wave is processed, while we consider in the previous example that 50 batches got created, so if all the 50 batches gets processed, then ESD creates another callback request to update the status to be completed. Status of the wave to be completed. Under ESD queue directory callback queue data queue.xxx. All these callback and bounce requests are sent as a SOAP message to Siebel, and these SOAP messages will be processed by EA Object Manager. In case if ESD crash for any reason, whenever you restore or restart your ESD, it will try to recover all the wave batches, that is the batches which used to send out emails, and the state directory mailing folder, and any bounces or callback requests will be retrieved from ESD queue directory, callback queue, or the bounce queue respectively. In case of callback response, EA Object Manager will process the SOAP message, and it will create a job request to Workflow Process Manager component to execute a workflow called Email Marketing Update Status Workflow. This is a very simple workflow, and this will update the status of the wave to complete the status. And there is a setting under Siebel.esd.properties file to limit your maximum throughput rate for ESD. And the property name is ESD SMTP.throttleval, and this property is under ESD.properties file. And below the listed few examples of those value of this property. -1, it's no throttle and it is very high. This is the default setting, and it sends email at the highest rate as possible by your MTA. And 250 to 350, it's like kind of a medium setting, and you can set it to any number between it, and the emails are sent at the rating per second by whatever you have set. Say for example, if you have set it at 300, it will send 300 emails per second. 50 to 250 is low, and it sends the email as per the settings you have mentioned at per second value. Say, for example, if you have set it to 100, it will send 100 emails per second. Moving on to see how CTD works. Whenever recipient receives an offer email, and if he does anything like any clicks or anything on the email, the response link or the read receipt image will point to CTD web server, and CTD will receive the HTTP request and passes it to identify the response type, and also it retrieves the SCAMCON row ID, that is the row ID of the particular contact or a prospect from which this response has been received, that is the recipient. The CTD will create the response request under CTD queue directory response type data queue.xxx. So there will be distinct folder for all response type, like for click-throughs, forward to friend, unsubscribe, subscribe to list. For each and every response type, there will be a folder created. So based on the type of response, the files will be created under those folders. All these requests are processed by EA Object Manager whenever call is sent from CTD to process this request. And there are parameters under CTD which can be used to control when the Siebel call should be made by CTD. The parameters are CTD queue max size and CTD flush interval. So CTD queue max size states how big the size of the queue under the queue directory should be there before you make a call to Siebel to process all the files under the queue directory. And flush interval says, like the interval says, if you state as 20 minutes, for every 20 minutes, send a request to Siebel to process all the files under queue directory. So whichever comes in first, immediately CTD will make a call to Siebel to process it. In case of any CTD crash, and if you start again, it will try to process all the responses under the queue directory, and so there will not be any loss of any responses. In case of forward to front, it has a different flow. The EA Object Manager will create a job to Workflow Process Manager component to execute a workflow. The workflow name is email marketing -forward to front. This particular workflow will create a response record as in all the other responses does, but in addition to that, it will create a new prospect record for the friend which you have forwarded. Say for example, if you are forwarding to a friend, Mr. A, there will be a new prospect record created for Mr. A. It will basically ask for all the first name, last name fields whenever you are forwarding to a friend and the email address as well. So it will create a prospect record with all those details under that particular campaign, so you can track those prospects for future processes. Moving on to the process flow of BHD. Whenever BHD receives a bounce message from internet on port 25, the BHD passes the message and try to identify the reason of the bounce. If the message could be passed and a valid bounce reason code was found, the BHD puts that message into audit mbox, which is used for logging purpose and auditing purpose in future. In case the message could be passed and it cannot be associated to any bounce reason code, inbuilt bounce reason code, it puts the message into unpassable mbox. Again, BHD also retrieves the SCAMCON row ID, that is the row ID of the contact, and it updates that particular, it sends a SOAP message to Siebel to update the bounce reason code and type of that particular contact or prospect. BHD will create this bounce request under BHD queue directory, data queue.x86 file to process it. So, in case of BHD crash, again it will retrieve from this particular place under the queue directory, and there will not be any bounces will be lost. Moving into installation part, the first and foremost thing is to check the SRSP guide, the Siebel guide, which to understand the supported EMS version for your Siebel version. So as we have seen in past, like the EMS interacts in a different way with Siebel for different versions. So you may start to identify which is the correct EMS version for your Siebel version. You can download this EMS installation files under Oracle Support Portal under Patches and Updates tab. Once you have identified the correct EMS tab, you can go through this document ID with 1389371.1 to identify the correct Java version for your email marketing server, which is very important to identify and understand the correct Java version for your particular EMS version, and this Java version has to be installed prior to ESD, CTD and BSD installation. If you have any other Java version, it's better to uninstall and install this particular Java version. And you can find Java installation under installables under oracle.com tech network Java archive. Moving into installation, each email marketing server component will have its own installation file. The file name is very easy to read. The first three letters is the name of the component, and the next section is, it will refer the base version, and the last section is the version of the EMS. For example, you see here as ESD-8112-616-install.exe. So it says the component is ESD and your base version is 8112 and the email marketing server version is 616. So the installation steps are very basic and easy to follow. Once you start the installation by clicking the exe file for a particular component, first you will get an introduction page. You can click next. And next is a very important step, choosing your Java version. If you see your correct Java version in the list, which you see here, you can pick it up and click next. If you do not see the Java version here, please choose another button and navigate to the correct path where you have installed your Java version and choose that Java version and then click OK. Then you select it here and click next. In the next step, that is choosing your install folder, you will choose the appropriate installation folder and you can click next and next to complete the installation. You'll have to install all three components separately, and there will be individual services running for all three components. There are few known installation issues. You can refer these documents, this listed documents, in case if you face any issues during your installation, especially when you are using the installation in Linux. You might face some issues. There are some known issues. So it will have like simple additional steps or like precautions which has to be taken care of to install it on Linux. So these are the documents which will help you out there. After the installation, we have to perform few mandatory post-installation tasks. Basically, we have to set the parameters in Siebel Marketing application so that Siebel Object Manager can connect to ESG properly to send out the SOAP request to process the emails. Then we have to set the properties and the Siebel.properties files for EMS components to connect with Siebel application from Siebel 753 to 8.0. In case of 8.1, the file name will be like ESG.properties or CTD.properties or DSG.properties to ensure the connectivity with Siebel application. So these files, the properties file, you'll find it under the root level under the installation folder. For the detailed steps on this process, you can refer Siebel Marketing Installation and Administration Guide, installing and configuring email marketing, configuring email marketing daemons. Under this section, you should be able to see all this post-installation tasks. Below the few things which is mandatory to check for a smooth process. All the components must be able to generate SOAP calls in Siebel 8.1 and SysNAPI connection prior to Siebel 8.1, and the Siebel JDK Java version should be installed prior to installation of the SOAP components. ESG must have access to Siebel file system, which is very important. You can actually configure your Apache or Tomcat listening port or any other related options under server.xml file, which will again you will find under your component installation folder. BSD must have connectivity on port 25 from the external network or on the inbound MTA. MTA can be running on port 25 on the same machine where BSD is running. And MTA cannot be running on port 25 on the same machine where BSD is running. This will create a clash. CTD must have inbound connectivity on port 80 from the external network or the proxy server in the demilitarized zone. A web server cannot be running on port 80 because from Siebel 8.1 onward CTD runs on port 8060. While analyzing the log files, from the Siebel side, you have to look at the Siebel Marketing Object Manager, Workflow Object Manager, and SC Broker logs. These are some recommended log levels for the components. The setting to log level might create too many information. You can increase it to log level 5 whenever it is required for detailed analysis. Generally, log level 4 should be okay. Starting from 8.1 onwards, we must need to analyze the EA Object Manager and SWSE logs as well. You can refer this document to how to increase the log levels for SWSE. Also, in case of any other troubleshooting or log, you can reach out Siebel support. In case of any issues related to Tomcat, Apache or Tomcat, if you want to look at the log files related to it, you can look at std error.log, std out.log, and Katarina out files. In case of any issues, if you wanted to check the esd.log or bsd or ctd.log, look out for exceptions, Java exceptions, which will be enclosed under exception tag. That will give you the main reason for the failure. For BSD, you can check audit mbox and unpassable mbox for what are the bounces which BSD has processed. For increasing the log level, you have to go to log4j.props file. Under each and every component, this file will be there for every component, and you can open that file and you can look for the strings info, and you can move it from info to debug 2 or debug 3, where debug 3 is the highest level of logging. You can refer this document for more details. Coming into troubleshooting part, if you see the component does not come up and if you see the licensing error, don't just think it's any licensing issues. Please read few lines above it and to see any other exceptions under the log, ESD or BSD or CTD log. So that will give you a better idea why it did not start up. And very important thing is all the Siebel services should be up and running before you start email marketing server components. That is, all the Siebel components should be up and you should be able to access Siebel application very smoothly before you start up ESD or CTD or BSD components. Try to call the web service URL from the local IE where the EMS components are running, so that will give you any connectivity issues. In case of campaign launch error, you can look at esd.log and there is no connectivity issues while accessing the file system. You might as well check for SWSE logs from Siebel 8.1 onwards. If you see BSD is not processing, first of all, please go and check audit mbox and unpassable mbox whether a bounce has really reached BSD. So that is the first thing to do. And here are other few documents when ESD does not send out email which you can refer for. And very important thing is the domain, the BSD domain which ESD used to construct the email from address. You have to see that that domain is not blacklisted and it is available. You can check it under mxtoolbox.com to make sure that is not blacklisted. As we have mentioned about this asynchronous bounces which BSD handles, again they are classified as hard and soft bounces. We have mentioned earlier, hard is a permanent one and soft is temporary ones like bad address, address moved and bad sender are permanent ones and they are classified as hard bounces. Others are like mailbox problem, system problem, message too large. These kind of errors like vacation, protocol problem are like temporary ones. So those are categorized as soft bounces. These slides gives you a little more explanations of bounces, like when it says address bounce. This happens when the recipient has changed his email address and the new address is available. This occurs rarely. Like bad sender is like when email address is either formatted incorrectly, like there is no such user and those kind of things. Like these are like self-explanatory, most of this bounce type. Like protocol problem, this happens when the receiving email server does not work with our version of SMTP or MTA we use. So all these bounce types are self-explanatory. These are some master documents which you can refer. The master note for Siebel email marketing server, daemons, ESD, CTD, and BSD installations. This particular document will help you out in any installation issues. This is a master document, or in case of any other startup issues or anything, you can refer this document. And you can always refer bookshelf for the Siebel Marketing Installation and Administration Guide and Siebel Marketing User Guide. This will give you more details about any installation, post-installation, how to use any functionalities, or like how to verify the installation. All these details will be covered under bookshelf. I hope I covered all the topics which I mentioned in the beginning, like the functionalities, server components, how does it work, their process flows, architecture, sample architecture for installation, log files and troubleshooting. In case of troubleshooting, you can always create a service request in Siebel support. We'll be happy to help you out. Also, there is communities. You can get into this URL communities.oracle.com and can create your own login. And this community portal is to serve you for any simple question. You can click on Siebel CRM actually, and you can create any community post related to Siebel marketing or any other Siebel questions. There are like all the Oracle experts will be looking at it and they'll be responding to you. You can create questions under any of these categories and it will be answered. That's all from my side, and in case if you need any details on any of this topic, we will deliver a separate session based on your interest. And over to you, Sharanda, for question and answer session.
Okay, thank you so much, Arjesh. We'll open our Q&A in just a moment, so please use the chat feature or the phone lines at this time to let us know that you do have a question. Bridget, can you give instructions for posting a question via the phone line for me, please?
At this time, I would like to remind everyone, in order to ask a question, press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. We'll pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster.
While we wait for your questions, please note, again, within 48 hours, the download streaming link and the PDF for this presentation will be posted on My Oracle Support. The doc number for this is 740966.1. As a reminder, if you think of any questions after the presentation ends, please send me an email at sharonda.pettit@oracle.com, and I'll forward your questions on to the presenter to be answered on a one-off basis. Okay, Bridget, any questions at this point?
There are no questions at this time.
All right, thank you so much. I did have a question posted to the chat box, and once again, feel free to post any questions you may have at this point in time to the chat box. We'll pull them out of there, and we'll get Arjesh to answer those for you. First question, Arjesh, can I get any information on the campaign marketing modules? I don't have the overall background information on those modules, which we don't use right now. So how can we get additional information on those modules?
This is more of your question, actually. If you have an interest to know about more of campaigns and marketing, probably you can register your interest. Based on the interest registered, we will create a new webinar or a training. There are few Oracle University trainings to understand marketing campaigns and their process, which you can go through as well, those trainings. There are also few other webinars or webcasts which has been in the archive. Probably in the next slides, Sanda will explain you where those documents are archived. You can go and take a look at those archived documents, which may give you a little idea about it. But I would suggest you to attend the OU training, Oracle University training, which explains, it gives you more details about Siebel campaigns and marketing, which has details of all the excellent functionality over there in detail.
Okay, thank you, Arjesh. I think those are good suggestions there. And I will highlight the archive section in the new portal for where we're storing all of these webinars so that you can access the archive information, which does have 1 or 2 topics that covers these modules as well. So thank you again. I have another question on the chat that just came through. Arjesh, let me give this one to you. We use Cognos Analytics, not Siebel Analytics. Will this have an impact?
Okay, so this question actually, in perspective of email marketing server and email functionality, there will not be any impact because, as I initially told, the email marketing server does not interact with analytics. It interacts with Siebel. Analytics is most used for segmentation and any other campaign process like phone campaign and stuff. So email marketing server has no impact with use of Cognos or any analytics server. It does not have any impact. Hope that answers your questions. Please let me know if you need more details.
Okay, thank you, Arjesh. Any other questions on chat? Bridget, can we check the phone lines again?
And there are still no questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to hold off one more minute or two in the Q&A session. Are there any additional questions? Either you can post them via the phone lines or chat. I'll give you a minute or two to see if you can pick up a few more. If not, we'll conclude the Q&A session and then wrap up here. So just a few more minutes. Okay, I think I have a follow-up to the last question there, Arjesh. Hold on one second to read this out to you. So what is the impact on segmentation? And segmentation, I think we're talking about, like with Siebel Analytics, that segments out marketing-related information. What's the impact on segmentation, et cetera, if you don't use Siebel Analytics?
I do not have much knowledge about other analytics tools like Cognos Analytics, whether they will support segmentation or not. Probably you can, as I mentioned, the communities, you can create a question over there and like experts from segmentation sites, the analytics site will be able to respond to you explaining it. In general, for segmentation purpose and from Siebel 8.1 and even prior to that, you use Siebel Analytics. I believe you should be able to integrate with Cognos Analytics as well, but to understand this, you have to check with, you can create a post in community or you can create a service request to understand more details.
Okay. Arjesh, let's go back to that last slide where you highlighted the community information and just point people to where it is again so that they'll know where to post that information. So the URL is down there at the bottom. Communities.oracle.com, portal server, .pt community, Siebel_CRM, where you want to post those types of questions to. Very good. All right. Any other questions, either via the phone line or chat? Okay. Arjesh, can you move to the Q&A slide? Then I'm going to have you move to the next slide. All right. Thank you very much. Well, this concludes the Q&A portion of the webcast. Before we bring today's webcast to a close, I'd like to share some additional information with you. Here you should see the Are You Ready to Get Proactive slide. The Proactive Capabilities portfolio is included in your Premier Support Agreement. Exploring how to get proactive is important because you can lower your organization's costs by preventing problems. Getting proactive also reduces risk and maximizes uptime. When problems do occur, you get faster resolutions. Avoiding problems is even faster. Proactive tools will help you determine which patches you need to install and how to avoid conflicts. Upgrade advisors help you through the process step by step for installing. Discussions in the My Oracle Support Community, the one that we just highlighted in that previous slide, will let you hear what other customers have to say about patches and give you lessons learned from their experience that can help you avoid problems in the future. To learn more, please explore the KM note that's listed there, article ID number 432.1. You'll discover more about the Getting Proactive, including product-specific pages that link you to tools and capabilities. You can also post questions to the Proactive team via email, get-proactive_ww@oracle.com. Next slide, please. This is just a reminder slide here that the current advisor webcast schedule and the archived recordings can be found on our new portal using the .ID number that's listed there, 740966.1. Let's take a look at that portal. Go to the next slide, please, Rajesh. So here's a look at the new portal. Welcome to the Advisor Webcast program. To get started, what you would want to do is select a product area from the drop-down list box that's listed there. Next slide, please. Then by your product area, like Siebel, you can then view the current schedule and register for an upcoming webcast that you can view. You can also view past recordings maintained in the archives. And this is the area I would point you to find additional information about Siebel email marketing or some of the modules that you had listed earlier around campaigns, etc. Next slide, please. All right. Well, thanks to Arjunan, and thanks to everyone today for joining our Advisor Webcast session. We hope you found this webcast valuable, and we look forward to you joining us again. Please enjoy the remainder of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. This does conclude today's conference call. You may now disconnect.